I would like to introduce our great speaker and my good friend, Pooja Agarwal. She is the founder and CEO of CAPS Realty Group, and with her group aims to help investors grow their wealth. Without further ado, I introduce you to Pooja.
Thank you so much for the warm introduction, Katrina. Welcome everyone to our workshop on financial literacy for women, where today I'm going to show you how to grow your wealth. I feel this workshop's being done at the perfect timing as the economy is going through a lot of volatility right now. And with the higher interest rates, higher inflation, there couldn't be a better time to take charge of your finances. My name is Pooja Agarwal, and I am been in the real estate industry basically for the last 15 years. And in the last 10 years, I've owned my own business, all while raising my own 10-year-old son. I have an MBA and a BBA from the Schulich School of Business. I manage an investment portfolio of over $40 million. And today I'm excited to show women like you of how to take charge of their finances and build the future that they deserve. So without further ado, I'm going to switch my screen over to our presentation and get right into the agenda. There we go. All right, so the agenda for the rest of the workshop basically begins with going over the importance of financial literacy. I'll go a little bit over my story and how I started. Then we'll go over the top 10 money terms that you need to know in financial literacy. Then we're going to go into the 5 main types of investments there are out there and the risk and return associated with each. Lastly, we'll end up with a case study that's going to show you exactly how you can, as of today, start making your plan to build your own wealth. And then we'll have a question and answer period right at the end. So let's get right into it. Females and financial literacy. In 2020, a survey was conducted in the US that measured financial literacy amongst men versus women. And as you see from the chart here, women scored lower in almost every aspect. And the 2 largest gaps were seen in savings and investings, which is the 2 main keys to building your wealth. In fact, I see this every day at my office for the last 15 years. The meetings that we have in the office for portfolio management or investment advice are mainly comprised of males coming in, figuring out how they want to invest, where they want to invest, and how they can grow their wealth. Very rarely do I have couples or just females coming into my office to ask those same questions. And I always wonder why. Maybe it has something to do with our upbringing and our background from the past. I know my mom, for instance, leaves all the money management up to my dad. She doesn't even know how to log into her bank account at this point. But maybe it's a little bit of that. But I feel now we've come so much further as women, where majority of us are working and getting pays that are equal, if not higher than a lot of the men. So it's time for us to take charge of our finances and really understand how can we save and invest to get to the point where our money is working for us rather than the other way around. So the question is, do we want to retire early? Of course. Do we really want to wait till 65 to get the pleasure and be financially free? We can definitely do it sooner or have that freedom of knowing that, you know what, this is possible and having the steps to get us there possibly early. So the first question is, how can you create wealth? When a lot of people ask this question, they figure that the only way to create wealth is by making more money. Yes, this is true to a point, but I feel that, you know, there's so much more to creating wealth than just making more money. There's a second half of it, which is investing your money. You'll see a lot of people, like for instance, you know, athletes that you know or superstars that have made millions of dollars, but also lost a lot of them. And we're going to go over 3 of the most common examples that come to mind. Number 1, you might know somebody called Mike Tyson. He was actually the world's youngest boxer, and he made $400 million in his career. Now, if you had $400 million, would you spend it all? Well, he did. And he declared bankruptcy in 2003. Another example is Michael Curran, who was a 19-year-old garbage collector, and he luckily won the lottery of $13 million in 2010 that completely changed his life. But did he invest or save? Of Quite the opposite. He actually spent it all on extravagant parties and luxuries, and just 9 years later had no money left and had to return to his same job in 2019. Lastly, you might know this actor, Nicolas Cage. He earned over $150 million in 1996 to 2009, but had expensive taste and ended up spending all his earnings and actually owing $6 million in back taxes to the government. So what does this all show you? It doesn't matter if you win a big winning of millions of dollars, or if you had millions of dollars, you need to learn the key of keeping that wealth and growing that wealth, right? So the key is it's actually just to keep and to grow the wealth. And that's what you have to learn in your wealth creation. You see, there's 4 personalities when it comes to money. You can either be a spender, you can be a saver, you can be an investor, or you can be a giver, or you can be a combination of any of these. And actually, that is the best scenario, to have a balance and create some kind of system where you're a little bit of each. And that's the key of wealth building. You see, if we get a little bit into my story, I was more of the saver growing up. So I come from an immigrant background where my parents came to Canada in the 1970s with only $20 in their pocket. So they had to work very, very hard to make ends meet. They taught me and my sisters amazing financial skills, such as working hard for your money, saving as much of it as we could, and we only purchased things that we needed and not necessarily wanted. And we never used credit cards. Even until this day, my dad does not believe in debt. So I grew up with this amazing work ethic and easily being able to save my money, but I was missing the other half of wealth creation, which was what? The other half is investing it and diversifying your investments, which we'll get into in a bit. So after I got my MBA, got my real estate license, got married, I knew that investing was the key to growing my wealth. But, I had just bought a house. We had a huge mortgage on our head, and I felt everything that we were earning was going towards the mortgage and going towards other expenses. I knew I had to buy more investment properties, but even though I was making almost $200,000 to $300,000 in commissions, I couldn't come up with a strategy on how to save enough money. So just before I turned 29 and was pregnant with my son, I said, enough is enough, and I need to figure this out. So I read every book there is on wealth creation, every seminar there is, every course I attended to try to figure this out. And I came up with a strategy, which I now today called my buckets to wealth strategy. And I'm going to show you that today. This has changed my entire life. This strategy has helped me purchase my first investment property at 30, which I made over $250,000 on in just 2 years. And after that, I bought at least one investment property every single year. And in the last 5 years, I have also diversified my investments further by adding stocks, mutual funds, ETFs, as well as a little bit of cryptocurrency. And today I'm going to teach you about this strategy. But first, let's go over 10 of the most important financial literacy concepts you need to know. Keys to money, like I said, you need to save and invest. The main thing that you need to know is time is on your side when you're investing. So time is very important when you're investing your money. The sooner you start, the more money you can make in wealth creation. This chart basically shows you a person that starts only investing, let's say $100 a month at the age of 25 versus the same person who starts investing at the age of 35, how much bigger they've got in their wealth at retirement versus the person that started at 35. So it shows you that the earlier you start, the better it is for you. A good example of this is Warren Buffett. We all know that he started investing in stocks when he was only 11 years old, and he realized the importance of compound interest. Compound interest allows you to make interest basically at an exponential rate the longer you keep it into the account. And it again depends on your investment strategies, which we'll go into in a bit. The second concept that you have to be familiar with is budgeting. Budgeting, I know a lot of people don't like to think of budgeting, but budgeting can be a lot of fun. It's basically a plan for where your money is going to go. You first have to see what income's coming in, calculate then your expenses, both fixed and variable, and then the net balance, you decide how much of it you're going to save and where you're going to invest the rest. Which brings us into the next concept, income versus expenses. So your income is obvious. It's basically any money that's coming in to your account. It can be your salary after taxes. It can be any bonuses you're receiving. Maybe it could be rent from any rental income properties you have. It can also be dividends from stocks coming in or other investments. Or it could be income from a business that you might own. And then you've got your expenses, which are your typical things such as grocery, rent, loans, insurance, utilities, etc. Now, these expenses you actually have to split into fixed versus variable expenses, which I mentioned a bit, but what fixed expenses basically means are expenses that don't change every single month. So they're constant, such as rent. And variable expenses are those that do change every month, such as utilities. It can go up or down, or your grocery bill can go up or down. This brings us to your next concept, needs versus wants, right? When we're looking at budgeting, a lot of people say, you know what, you need to control your wants and focus on your needs so you can save enough. Yes, I do believe this, but I also believe you need to have some goal that you're trying to attain and which helps make some of your dreams come true. So it's important to have some wants because, we all work so hard, and I really feel it's important to reward ourselves. So what I've come up in my wealth strategy is having a bucket called your dreams bucket. And this is a certain percentage of your income that's associated to your dreams bucket and that you can actually spend on something that you want, which we'll go over in detail in a bit. Next, we go into assets versus liabilities. Assets are basically anything that's bringing money into your statements, and liabilities are anything that are taking money out of your account, such as mortgages, any loans, credit card debt, etc. And then talking about mortgages, what a lot of people don't realize is that a mortgage is actually comprised of 4 payments within your one mortgage payment. A portion of your payment's going towards principal, which is paying off the actual loan that you took. A portion's going towards interest, which is the interest that the bank charges to offer you this loan. And then usually a portion is going towards property taxes and then insurance, which is usually mortgage insurance. So all that combined, what you need to know is that the longer your amortization or the longer your mortgage is, the more interest you're going to pay. So the sooner you pay off your mortgage, the less interest expense you're going to have. However, if you're using a mortgage as leverage in an investment, sometimes it's not so bad to have a longer mortgage as long as your property is paying itself off, which we'll get into in a bit. But what you need to know, the main thing, that mortgages comprise of principal and interest payments, and the sooner you pay it off, the more you can save on interest. Now, another part of a liability is your credit cards, right? There's pros to having credit cards. They're an excellent way to help you build credit, but you got to make sure that you pay down the full balance every single month. Otherwise, it's going to start accumulating, and the interest rate on credit rates is actually one of the highest that there are, and it can really, really bring your liabilities down. You also get points and cashbacks on credit cards, which is fantastic. So as long as you're paying the balance every single month on time, credit cards are definitely a pro. But make sure you don't accumulate too much credit card debt because the interest rate is very high, and that's going to bring your liabilities further down. What you also need to know is credit score. Now, I know if you've just started off your career, you might not think this is so important, but down the road, when you're thinking to make bigger investments, a credit score is crucial, and a good credit score, because it shows lenders how much they can trust for you to pay back their loans. And it makes it easier for them to lend out money, and easier for them to lend out usually bigger sums of money to you if you do have a higher credit score. And how do you get a higher credit score? Make sure, again, you pay your bills on time every single time. Do not miss a single one, because every single bill you do miss, it brings your credit score down slightly. You need to apply for credit sparingly, meaning don't always apply for credit for every little thing. And you got to keep your credit card balance well below the limit. If you're always maxing out the limit, that's also going to bring your credit score down. And credit score is very crucial when it comes to real estate investing, which we'll go into in a bit. So this brings us into our wealth buckets. What I was telling you that I figured out, which helped me plan out my budgeting, my finances, my investments, and my savings all together. Basically, wealth buckets have to do with paying yourself first. And what I started doing, and what I would advise for you to do, and again, we're going to do this in our case study as well, so you can get some practical knowledge, is the income that you have coming in to your account, split it into percentages. How much of it do you think should go towards all your expenses? And then the rest of it, make 4 buckets. And you can make additional buckets if you like. But my favorite 4 buckets are, I have a savings bucket, I have a dreams bucket, like I mentioned, for my dream goals. I've got an investment bucket, and then I have a giving back bucket. In this way, once you've got your money coming in, I have automatic payments that I have set up the first of every month to pay out each of these buckets according to the percentages. So automatically my money is getting paid out to my buckets. I don't have to think about it. And then whatever I have left over is extra that I can spend on, either put it more into my savings or spend it on something that I need to, get done. And the nice thing is it kind of just organizes everything a bit. So these wealth buckets, keep in mind, and if you want to know the nitty gritty of exactly how to use this and how to calculate it, this is what we're going to do in our case study at the end of this workshop. So we will come back to this. So now once you've done your wealth buckets, you're going to ask, okay, Pooja, I've got my savings bucket. Pooja, I've got my investing bucket, but what do I do with my savings? What are the next steps? And this is things that I wish I learned going through school, which I didn't. I learned that I had to save. I learned that I had to invest, but I didn't know the how to get myself to the next step. So this is what we're going to teach today, is what you can do with your savings and investments and how you can get them to the next stage where your money is making money for you. So in terms of savings, you can put them in 3 spots. You can either put them right into your account, maybe a high rate savings account, for instance, or you can put them into an RSP, which basically is backed up by the government and it helps you plan for your retirement. Or you can put them into a tax-free savings account, which the government also allows you to put up to almost $6,000 in. And the benefit of this is any investment that's inside of here basically grows tax-free. So how I talked about compound interest, it really starts working in these tax-free accounts down the road. So do take advantage of these. And again, you can speak to your bank or any financial advisor to help you determine how much of each you should put in and how to kind of approach this. Next is the types of investments, the 5 types of investments. There's tons more investments out there, but what you need to know about investments is that they all have a different level of risk involved. They go from low risk to high risk, and how you're going to determine what is good for you really depends on what stage of life you're at and what your personal situation is. So again, today I'm just giving you examples, but you do have to speak to a professional who can advise you on exactly what would be best for you. First type of investment that is the most low risk is government bonds and GICs. They're basically guaranteed interest rate by the government, and this is something that I like to put my savings into. I'm going to go through these quickly just because of our time left. Next, we've got stocks, mutual funds, and ETFs. Stocks is basically like buying a share of a company, and then this company usually pays you out a dividend every 2 years according to how they're doing. Mutual funds, instead of you just buying shares into one company, allows you to buy shares into a basket of companies. So if you don't want to be daily looking at stocks and managing them, mutual funds is a great option. ETFs, which are exchange traded funds, are again a basket of securities that basically replicate the index. And the nice thing about ETFs is that they're the rates, the commissions basically of the fund managers and the expenses involved are a lot lesser. So again, we can go into more details after with this. And real estate, which is my bread and butter, I feel real estate is one of the best investments because you have something that you can touch and feel. And not only does it appreciate over time, if you look at the history in the last 100 years, but you can also rent it out and make an income out of it. There's 4 types of real estate you can invest in: either resale income property, where you're either buying a home or a condo or a townhome and renting it out. You can do resale flips, where you're renovating the property and then flipping it for a profit. You can do pre-construction, which is definitely one of our specialties at our brokerage, and I love it because you only need around $40,000-$50,000 to start, and your property doesn't get built until 4 or 5 years. So you're basically buying a property from a builder before it's even built, and you're only putting 15 to 20% down. And by the time it's built, it's appreciating according to the market, and then at that point, you can close it or rent it out. And lastly, you've got commercial real estate, which does require a lot more of a bigger investment, but it's an excellent way to make income. One thing I want you to also be aware of is using your home equity to invest. This is a fantastic thing that I never knew about first getting in to my career. And what exactly is equity? It's basically if you buy your home, let's say for $300,000 5 years ago, and today it's worth $400,000, that extra $100,000 you have in your home is called your home equity, and banks allow you to borrow against this. So I have a lot of people sometimes saying, I don't have $50,000, $60,000 to invest in real estate, and we usually calculate how much equity they have, figure that out, and they can use that to get a head start in these bigger investments. So do look at any equity that you may have. Another investment vehicle is businesses. You can buy an existing business or own a business and have income generated that way. And lastly, one of the most riskier investments are cryptocurrencies and collectibles. Cryptocurrency is a digital currency. We've all been hearing about it recently, right? It did fantastic in the last few years, but if you look at the chart, you'll see that it's extremely volatile, right? Like a few years ago, you can buy it at like 20,000, went up to around 50,000, and now we're sitting back down at 20. Why I mention this is this really depends where you are in your life. And if you've got extra money to invest, this is not a bad investment, but do remember there's a lot of risk involved. So it really depends on your risk exposure. Collectibles, the same thing. You don't have a guaranteed investment, guaranteed return, sorry. So last 2 concepts I want to just quickly mention is, yes, okay, you build your wealth buckets, you build your investment portfolio, you have to make sure you also have insurance in financial literacy, right? To make sure you protect all your assets. Life insurance, health insurance, auto insurance, extremely important. And lastly, have a will in place. If you work so hard, creating your wealth, if anything ever happens to you, you want to make sure your family is getting the labor of your hard work and not the government. So do talk to a professional to get all this in place. So now let's get right into our workshop. We're going to have a 10-step plan to start growing your wealth today. So how we're going to start is we have a small case study that we're going to read, and I want you to all get a sheet of paper, basically, and split it into 4 quadrants. If you are currently making an income, or you are in a family that has income coming in, you can use your own numbers to see exactly where they're going to go. And if you're not making an income right now, or you want to use our example, you can do that as well. So this is what your page should look like. Top quadrant, income expense, let's write that in, and then you're going to have your assets and liabilities. And now I'm going to read out the case to you, and we'll go through it together slowly. All right. So Laura is a mother with 2 children aged 10 and 12, and she has been working as an assistant for a global corporation and makes $42,000 a year after tax. So what I want you to do with that $42,000 is divide it by 12, and we're going to go into our quadrant, and basically the $3,500 that we get, if we divide $42,000 by 12, you're going to write it under your income. Now, going back to the slide, she also gets an Ontario child tax benefit from the government of $250 per child. So again, going back into our sheet, we're going to write child benefit 250 times 2, because she's got 2 children that's coming into her income. Laura and her kids live in a 2-bedroom condo where she pays $1,800 a month in rent. And she also has to pay her hydro and gas separately. So let's put in that $1,800 as her expense first. So that'll actually go into your expense column. And then she's got $144 a month that she pays for hydro and $45 to $120 for her union gas bill because it's variable every month. So how you're going to calculate that is 45 plus 120 and divided by 2 to get your average. So here we go. The rent is on your fixed expense and variable goes like that. Your 144 for hydro and then 75 for the other utility, which gives you a total of 219. Moving along, Laura has a cell phone and is currently on a contract that runs at $100 a month for her text, calling, and 4 gigabytes of data. So now we are going to basically write down her additional variable expense, which is a phone of $100 a month. And now going back to the case study, she is thinking about getting cable now and seems happy enough with Netflix for the time being at $10 a month. So you're also going to add $10 to her variable expenses. Laura has $5,000 of credit card debt that she carried over from when she got divorced. The credit card company is looking for $100 a month in minimum payments, which she can sometimes make, and sometimes she's not able to afford this full payment. So we're going to put that $100 a month into our variable expenses because some months it could be more, some months it could be less. And then go back to the case study. And then lastly, in terms of her car, she drives a 2017 Volkswagen on loan and she pays $500 a month for this, which is going to be, again, a fixed expense. And then she pays $100 a week for gas and another $125 in auto insurance, which again are variable expenses. So now looking at the total, we've got the car loan on the fixed expense, and we have the car insurance as a fixed expense as well. And then the variable, we've added the car gas. Last slide for the case study. Laura likes to have a family night each Friday, a time where she spends time to enjoy time with the kids to enjoy a meal out, usually keeping the cost between $40 and $50 per night, and then coming back to the house to watch a movie together. So this is going to go under your variable expense. $40 to $50, which would be $45 on average a week times 4. And then you've got, in terms of grocery, she spends on average $250 a month. So this is also going to go into your variable column. Which I'll show you all that after, but put that into your variable. The children are growing quickly and may need some new clothes for some of their extracurricular activities. Right now, they're both in swimming lessons that Laura pays $100 for each of them every 2 months. So if it's $100 for each of them every 2 months, means $50 for each of them every month, which is $100 total. So this is also going to go under your variable expense because she can cancel it at any time. Laura also has a kids education plan she started for each of them from the advice of her sister, and she pays $100 a month for each child. So this is also going to go under your fixed expense as she's paying $100 a month for each child on this. And lastly, Laura walks the kids to school and will go to Tim Hortons for a medium coffee and bagel every morning as she makes her way home. So I would think a medium coffee and bagels around $5 a day, multiply that by 30 days, and put the total under your variable expenses. So now if we're tallying it all up, your income should come to $4,000 a month. Your fixed expenses are all outlined here with the kids' education insurance added as well. And then your variable expenses have the swimming, the Friday outings, and the coffee and bagel. And now if we total the fixed, you'll get around $2,525 every month. And your variable expenses come out to $1,074. So now the key is to total up all your expenses for a grand total of $3,599 a month. So if we subtract the income, the total income from her total expenses, we will get a net cash flow of $651 a month that Laura has to spend on whatever she needs to at the end of each month. So now there's a little bit more of this case study. Thankfully, Laura has been making RSP contributions and her excess, with her excess savings since she graduated out of college, and now she has $10,000 saved up. So this is actually going to go under the asset column at the bottom. So put $10,000 for RSP. She was also advised by her friend to start saving at least $100 every month for a rainy day. So she has $5,000 saved up in cash in her account for the last few years. And this is also going to go under her asset column. So now if we're looking at her asset column, which is the step 3, you should have the RSP cash, the education savings plan, which is $100 times 12, because one of her son is 12 years old, times 12 months in a year, which she should have accumulated around $14,400 by now. And then the education savings plan for the second child, which is times by 10, because he was a 10-year-old child. So you've got $12,000 accumulated there. A total of $41,400 she has in her asset column. Now liabilities, what does she have total? Like we mentioned, she had a car loan of $15,000, which she's slowly paying off, and she has credit card debt of $5,000, which gives you a total of $20,000. So now the thing that you have to do is subtract all your assets from your liabilities to give you your total net worth, which is $21,400 for Laura. So you've got all these numbers, you know how much you're saving, you know how much your net worth, now what, right? So this takes us into the next step. Step 4 is we are just gonna put it all together, like you've got your full chart, look at it, and then basically decide where we're gonna go into the wealth buckets. Sorry about that. Okay, so basically your wealth bucket, what happens is those same 5 buckets that I talked about earlier, we are going to allocate them to the numbers that you see over here. So her total that she's left, basically your $4,000 income, you have to decide where it's gonna go. If her total net cash flow is $551 and your total expenses are $36.99, if you multiply $36.99 to $4,000, she's basically using 90% of her income right now to pay her expenses, which is way too high. So can you think of some ways as where she can basically save on these expenses? So what you basically have to do is allocate things to see how she can save her expenses. What can she do? Can Laura maybe basically reduce outside breakfasts? Maybe she can go out for dinner with her kids bi-weekly instead of weekly. Maybe she can reduce her grocery or utility bills. Perhaps she can renegotiate a phone plan. Or maybe she can just carpool to share some expenses. So you really have to look at your expenses and see where you can start saving just a little bit more, because usually you want your expenses to be around 70-75% max of your income, and then from there slowly go down even further. There's the wealth buckets I was looking for. So now what you basically do after you've assessed how to bring this down, right now, as I mentioned, her expenses are at $90,000, but I'm gonna do a wealth bucket scenario with a goal of bringing her expenses down to 75%. So if her income's $4,000, 4,000 times 75% is $3,000. So her expenses should not be more than $3,000. So I will allocate $3,000 to her expense bucket. From there, she basically has $1,000 left to play with. Where's this $1,000 gonna go? I want her to make 4 buckets. Again, a savings bucket, investment, dreams, and giving back. I believe, just as a scenario and as an example right now, 10% of that should go towards savings, 7.5% towards investment, 5% towards her dreams that she wants to possibly purchase and splurge on, and lastly, 2.5% on giving back. And why is giving back so important? Giving back is crucial to creating wealth, because as you give back, you honestly get 10-folds back. And it's easier to give back when you have a little. So you got to get into the habit of giving back now. As you create wealth, you'll be able to help so many more people. So after you've made these buckets, what Laura needs to do is call her bank and automatically have payments set up. So when the $4,000 income comes into her account, she should have an automatic payment into her savings bucket. So actually all of these should be 5 different accounts. I forgot to mention that. So you should have 5 different accounts at your bank, and your bank advisor can help you open this. So once your income comes in, automatically the 1st of every month or the 5th of every month, whatever you want to set it to, 10% should go into the savings, 7.5% to the investment bucket, and so on. And what this does is automatically makes you pay your buckets first before you splurge on any other expenses. And then you see if you have anything left over to spend on. But the key is, what do we do with these buckets after? You know, a lot of people teach us how to budget and where to put what, but what do we actually do with these? And I think that's the next key to wealth creation. So this brings us to our next step, which is decide your investments in each bucket and further split the percentage. So Laura's investment bucket, if we go back, had almost $300 in it, right? Which is 7.5% of her $4,000 income. So as an example, maybe she wants to put 50% of it every month towards real estate, which would be $150, 25% towards stocks and mutual funds, and maybe 25% towards GICs. The key is that she has to diversify, so she has different returns that she can work with, which will help her create more wealth in the future, but still have enough left in case of any emergency. So the investment bucket gets split further, and this can also be done every month when she's assessing her budget and assessing all these buckets. She can automatically be putting these same amounts into each of these investment fields. Next, her dreams bucket, and this is the fun part, she's got $200. What I would start doing is make a bucket list of what you would love to buy or what you want to spend on. Is it a vacation? Is it a new purse? Is it maybe something for the kids? And then prioritize that bucket and see this month or in the next 5 months what it is that I'm going to spend on first from my dreams bucket. Next, your savings bucket, you gotta again split that even further. $200 she already has going towards her education savings plan, so continue that. $100,000 towards emergency funds, and then $100,000 in her RRSP. And the $5,000 that she has already saved up as an emergency fund, we would suggest putting that into a GIC, so at least it can earn interest, as she most likely won't need that right away. And a GIC you can purchase, 1, 2, 3, or 5-year terms. And lastly, your giving bucket, also make a list of your favorite charities and see who you want to help first. So now, step number 9, I want you guys all on your piece of paper to write down what are your 3-year wealth goals. Take a minute right now, write down exactly where you wish you want to be in the next 3 years. Is it maybe to double your net worth? Do you want to maybe have $25,000 in a retirement account? Whatever it is, write it down now, because we're going to help you take action in the next step. Do you want to maybe earn $10,000 a year just off the investments alone that you have in your accounts? Or maybe you want to have $50,000 put in your emergency fund, or go on 2 vacations a year, buy a car, whatever it is, write it down and have fun with it. And then you need to prioritize this list, because once you prioritize this list, it's going to help you choose which investments you want to do. It's going to help you kind of get that money mindset in that I've got to save enough and I have to invest enough to attain my long-term goals. And now your last step is, what are your next steps? After this workshop, I've gone through a lot of material. If there's any questions, please reach out to me later. But what are your next steps after this workshop? You've made this plan, you've got these buckets. What you need to do is have your goals of what you're actually going to do and put a timeline to it. So are you going to make a meeting with the banker maybe by next week to learn about all the savings accounts you can open up possibly? Are you going to set up automatic payments for yourself for your wealth buckets and create them? But by when? Is it going to be next week? Maybe give yourself 2 weeks. Maybe you're going to track your monthly expenses at the end of each month now. Maybe you're going to make a meeting with a financial advisor and learn about all these investments in more details and see what is the right fit for you. Or you can always contact us and our team for additional coaching or investment advice or anything to do with real estate. We'll be more than happy to help you out. And then you can also do a lot of research. There's so much research that you can find on the internet and so much education. Just educate yourself. and really get ahead of learning about how to make wealth and start taking action. Because that, honestly, what I can end off with is that's the most important thing, is to start taking action and taking charge of your finances.